Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Workforce 4.0. I'm your host, Ann Wyatt. I'm super stoked to kick off this season 7 episode with Kevin Bowers from AMT. Kevin is here today. We're going to talk about all of the upcoming manufacturing and industry trends for 2025 and a little bit more about Kevin's role at AMT. But before we get into that conversation, Kevin, how are you? Do you want to give everyone out there a brief introduction of yourself and who you are?
My name is Kevin Bowers. I'm the Vice President of Research at AMT, the Association for Manufacturing Technology. We're a nonprofit industry association that's goal is to help drive and support the manufacturing technology industry. So when you say manufacturing technology, what does that mean? So when you think of manufacturing, they need all sorts of equipment to make the things that they make. And the people, our members, are the people that supply that equipment to all the manufacturers throughout the United States.
That's excellent. And AMT is behind some of the industry shows that you've seen on your LinkedIn, if you follow the social media and things like that. But they also do a lot of work for their members and what your expertise is in with data analytics and really understanding the pulse of the manufacturing industry and how it's moving forward.
That is right.
Very cool. Well, Kevin, I'm really excited to explore more of that with you today. I've got to give you the Workforce 4.0 welcome, and I've got to know if we were at one of your shows and we did like karaoke or something.
Okay.
What would be your go-to karaoke song?
All right. So this is going to sound strange and like, why would you pick that song? That's old, but my probably go-to song would probably be Hey Jude by the Beatles.
Yeah.
There's two independent reasons for that. One is first time I ever did karaoke, I was in Japan. I was 16 as an exchange student, and it was way back in the 90s. Didn't have a lot of the current songs that I knew, grew up in high school. So it was like 50s and 60s songs. So I know the Beatles. My parents listened to it, so whatever. So I would sing some Beatles songs, and then fast forward 20 years later, my daughter's name is Jude. So it ties it back there. So I would have to go with Hey Jude. Would I do well at it? No, but I'd still give it a shot.
Hey, sometimes it's the sentiment that counts. When I'm listening to music, not all the time, but sometimes I'm like, man, that's like just the lyrics are just chef's kiss.
That's right. Yep.
Amazing. I think it's a great choice. I think the listeners out there are probably big Beatles fans. Right on. I want to get into more of what you do for AMT. I think what you do is really cool. I think you have such a cool job. And I got to know, how did you get such a cool job? And can you shed some light on some of your own career journey along the way?
Sure. Let's start at the beginning and build up to where I'm at now, where I think is the ultimate job. It combines all of the passions that I have and the things that I learned along the way. But started almost out of college. I went overseas and taught for a year. I came back and I got a job managing spare parts at a machine tool builder, right? Taking orders, searching manuals and things like that. So I got my start there. I worked my way up into a bit more on the sales side, sales support, technical program management and such. And then I joined another Japanese machine tool builder, still sales operations and such, but a lot of the forecasting and trying to figure out through the data, what should we have in stock, all those types of things. So that's where I really got into the data part of it and kind of self-taught. I took statistics and all that stuff in school, kind of self-taught myself how to analyze things. And then I took a break from sales and went to aftermarket service and parts and training and call center. And I did that for quite a bit of time at DMG Mori. And then that got us up to about 2020, and all sorts of interesting things happened in 2020. So I decided in the midst of the pandemic, as I was change careers, still young enough to have a new shot at it. So I got into my first industry association, and it was research and consulting, and very data driven. And I did some consulting on aftermarket for 4 or 5 years. And then come this year, or maybe actually last year, a person at AMT that I've known, maybe the first outside person of the company I started with in the industry, Travis Egan, contacted me and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity if you're interested." So I met with him and said, "We need someone to lead research, but we also want that person to understand the industry." I'm like, "Ooh, I can check both those boxes." So everything worked out, and I landed my job here at AMT, and I lead the research effort here. So what we do here is we take market data and analysis and use that to give insights to our members. And we think we're in a unique position. As I said, we're a nonprofit, independent source. So our job is to help the industry grow sustainably. And it's not just me, it's our team. We have Ian, our VP of Data Governance. We have Dayton, our Director of Emerging Tech. We have Chris, our Principal Economist. We have Nina, our Data Scientist. We have Mark and Juan and Chase, Senior Analysts. And we have Chloe and Matt, Analysts. So a team of 10 of us support our members. They have some entitlements. And Amex said membership has its perks, right? But so the members get perks, but we also support out non-members, right, with paid research and consulting. But the members get discounts on those things, as well as some other entitlements for being members. So that's what I do.
Very cool. I'm trying to digest all of that. First of all, I love that you gave your whole team a shout out. I love that.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's not me, it's us. And they're highly skilled, good, all STEM degrees, highly technical, but also a lot of domain expertise. They make the magic happen. I just help orchestrate and conduct.
Oh, I love that. And you got to love a good positive team culture. And you've got to love that you gave them an opportunity to get their shout out today for sure. I think it's really interesting going back to when you very first started your career. And you said you were in scheduling and forecasting, because that was a job title for a long time in manufacturing. And that's something that you can even do at a local level. You don't have to work for the corporation at headquarters or anything like that.
Right.
And you think about that, and you think about a point that we brought up right before recording. But you think about how when you graduate from college, you have this conception of manufacturing as on the floor. And I think that's forecasting is a very obtainable job for a fresh grad.
Exactly. We spoke. I think it's changing, but it's still the perception that is held is manufacturing's dirty and all the jobs are on a floor making widgets, tightening bolts, welding, doing those types of things. And while there are jobs where you weld and tighten bolts, it's not dirty anymore. If you went into some medical manufacturers, it's probably cleaner than my house because it has to be. Right. But then there's this whole ecosystem of people behind the people that are tightening bolts and building things that make manufacturing work. Like I said, forecasting, there's HR, there's accounting, there's sales, there's administration, there's all these different types of things. So almost any degree coming out of college can get into manufacturing, right? And so I think maybe sometimes people forget that. And then when we were speaking a few weeks ago, we talked about IMTS and the student summit. I think 15,000 students came and saw all the different exhibitors and such, but they're excited. They love it. They think it's cool. And there's a lot of cool things about it, right? But I think the problem is maybe their parents still think it's dirty and not the best job. But you can come out of a trade school with not a lot of college debt and start making money pretty quickly doing these types of things. So it's the young ones, I think they're convinced. So we got to work on the middle chunk there, right? Their parents.
Absolutely. For those that are listening in the audience today that are maybe they're in college, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're younger, can you clarify what your degree was when you graduated?
Oh, well, I am unlike the other 9 people on my team that have degrees in engineering and data science and stuff. My degree is in Japanese. That is a non-traditional degree, I would say, for manufacturing. It got me into a Japanese company, and I took a lot of math and engineering type classes in college, so that was okay. But it doesn't have to be, not everyone has to be a mechanical engineer to be, or electrical engineer to be in manufacturing. You can have a liberal arts degree, you can have an English degree, you can have all sorts of degrees and do well.
Exactly. And that's really the point that I was kind of driving home there,
Yep.
is that you can get into manufacturing regardless of your degree type. So
I
thank
am
you.
living proof of that.
And then I think it's interesting that once you graduated with your degree in Japanese, you got a position in forecasting. And now you're working for one of the world's leading companies
Yeah, it's
in industry.
a lot of this research role is you need to be good at math and data, but there's got to be some domain expertise too. Sometimes the data says some weird things, but you have to be able to put that in the context of manufacturing. So that's the role I predominantly play. And then the team, I'm helping them that, but they have the intense, amazing data skills that find the things, and then we put some context to it and hopefully give some valuable insights to our members.
Exactly. And that is something that I've heard you all do very well.
We are trying, that is for sure.
Yeah, and data is very important, not just from the machine perspective, but also industry perspective, people perspective. Myself, I rely on labor market information data, which I'm sure you also know a lot about. But based on this data that you've collected
Mm-hmm.
over the past year, 2024, can you give us like some top 3 takeaways from what you've seen in the manufacturing industry?
Sure, I will. I will give you 3, and one of them I think will be near and dear to your heart. But first, we'll start with an interesting one.
Is it
There's a
about
lot of
people?
it is about people. So first, the first one though, we're not going to get to that one. Maybe we'll end with that one. But first, there's a lot of money to be had to help investment in manufacturing, both domestically with the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. There's all sorts of money out there that's helping manufacturing. And that's bringing, you hear the term reshoring, that is going pretty well if you read things in the media and such. So there's a lot of domestic investment, but there's also a lot of foreign investment coming into the States too, because they want a piece of that pie too. But what it's doing is bringing jobs and manufacturing to the United States again. So we like that. So that influx of money, and also the influx of money from the government, helps with innovation within the industry, right? And now that a lot of the holdup this year in spending that money was, what are they going to do with the interest rates? What's going to happen with the election? A lot of that stuff has kind of been solved, right? They started reducing the rates in September. They've done it twice now. The election has finalized. So those excuses, oh, we don't want to spend money until we know what happens, they're done. So now it's time for everyone to focus on the growth, and there's money to be had. So that's a good thing, I think, for the industry. So that's 1. 2, I'll use a few probably buzzwords that we see a lot, but there is a growing advance in the adoption of automation and AI. We saw that a lot of it at the IMTS show. I guess you alluded to it. I didn't explicitly say it, but AMT powers the IMTS show in Chicago, where we had 90,000 people come through the doors of McCormick Place over 6 days. But
It was a great show.
it was amazing. And the first time that I was there, not as an exhibitor, so it was eye-opening. I got to get outside of one booth and see all 4 halls, 1.5 million square feet of a number like that, right? But what you saw there is a lot of automation, and not only highly complex, very expensive automation, but a lot of automation focused at small and medium manufacturers that helps maybe democratize automations or lower investments, but everyone wants it to help be more productive. So I think that automation and AI was on display there, and I think it's growing, which we like. And I think this idea of tech is drawing the younger people, right? They expect tech. They grew up with that, with the internet, all these types of things, like we did not. So they expect automation and all these types of things. But then finally, I think there's this persistent workforce shortage. As you mentioned, you dabble in all these government data. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics, one of their reports is, if you look, there's over 486,000 open jobs in manufacturing right now. And it's been at this level of 500,000 or so for a long
For
time.
years. I mean, for
Right.
years. It's
So
not
there's
going away.
No, it is not. So despite all these technological advancements and the fear that automation and AI are going to take all these jobs, there's still a need for all these jobs, right? And AI and automation are creating even newer jobs. So there's this persistent lack of labor. So we need to figure out ways to find, upskill and reskill our current people, as well as maybe grow some people. So one of the things I was maybe the most proud of what I did at DMG Mori is we started an apprentice program. We couldn't find them, so we grew them. So we hired 10 or young people every year and train them in the factories. And then after 3 years, and it was a competency-based program, not put in 2,000 hours and go. It was, you had to show your skill. And we had, I think they're still doing it. I'm not there. That it's been going on for about 10 years now, and they've graduated maybe 120 apprentices out of that program. It's pretty amazing. So if you can't find them, you got to grow them.
That's awesome. All of these things are just blowing my mind. Did you see me over here? I'm like taking notes because I'm like, okay, I need to ask some more questions.
All right. I assume this is what would happen when I brought some of these up. So
I'm excited. The nerd in me loves this, right?
Yep.
And I do realize that you're a very busy man and we don't have all the time in the world, but I've got to know some of these things.
All right.
So talking about the CHIPS Act, I think that people are very aware of that in industry, especially like your small, medium industries, enterprises. But what's the best way to leverage and utilize that? Like what's that process look like for them? Is it easy? Sometimes with government, it can be cumbersome.
Well, it's not easy to do business with the government. I think they even know that. If you're at AMT, as you saw, there was a few people there, like the Blue Forge Alliance, about building submarines. Their whole mission in life is to make it easier to do these types of things. So they're working on that. But all these bills are signed in and all the money's out there. People have said, yes, we're going to build factories. And we've seen a huge increase in construction spending to build these manufacturing facilities. And I think finally now in 2025, we're to the point where these facilities are starting to be built, and now there's going to have to start ordering the machinery, right? And once the machinery gets there, they're going to have to start hiring the people, training the people. So I think now, where there was a lot of talk and things signed and a lot of, yeah, we're going to do this in 2024, now I think the money's hitting, and it's going to be a lot easier for people to get more involved in it. And I think there's kind of a rush to get some of this money spent before the transition in power. So I think next year, in AMT and our partner to help us forecast Oxford Economics, we forecast the growth in manufacturing technology orders of almost 20% next year. Why? Because finally the money's going to be available to buy the equipment and start making things with that money. So I think because of that, much easier for people to participate.
And to be clear, sometimes when you're talking about government money or government grant money, any things like that, there are very specific rules on how you can handle, distribute, and use that money. And do you know if there's going to be any stream of income through any agency that may be dedicated to training and developing workforce?
I'm unsure, but I do believe a few weeks ago you talked to my friend Montez King from NIMS.
Yes.
And he's the executive director of NIMS, and NIMS' focus in life is creating standards for training, right? And I think that they're helping people try to take advantage of some of this money. Now, can I say that there's the $100 billion CHIPS Act, there's 25% earmarked for training? I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure there is. I've seen a lot of activity, for example, in Ohio about training, and I think that's a lot from grant money. So I think there is some. I don't know the numbers. We may have to call our friend Montez, phone a friend to get that answer. But
I may do that. Montez, give me the deets. I need the tea on where we can apply for workforce training from the CHIPS Act. Very cool. I guess my next question is really centered around AI and automation and how small and medium enterprises can leverage that effectively. What do you think that looks like for them? And do you think there's going to be How do you think it's going to change?
I think that it's interesting. Oh man, it was last month. I hosted a panel talking about this, and it was a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. And on the panel were a bunch of consultants that were helping people implement these types of things. And I think what we spoke about is everyone thinks, oh man, I got to get AI, and I got to get like 100 times ROI on this thing. So they got to have these huge projects and all these types of things. You'll fail if you do that. One, because you got to have a great data strategy to feed your AI strategy. So you got to have all your data things in a row. So it's better to start small, right? And starting small is pretty good in smaller and medium-sized enterprises, because one or two people know everything you need to know about it. So it's easy to apply the AI and have that domain expertise. So a lot of the takeaways from that panel was start small, get some quick wins. And while you're doing that, think about that one project that's going to, if you invest $10,000, you're going to get $100,000 in additional revenue or a decrease in costs or whatever, but start small. And I think everyone can do that. And I think that, you even saw this year at IMTS, traditional companies that you didn't used to see, like Microsoft was there talking about AI.
Saw them.
Google was there talking about AI. AWS was there talking about AI. A lot of the platforms that everybody uses every day in their work, they have these AI things that for a low barrier to entry and cost, you can start to use and get these quick wins. So I think don't go out searching for some brand new software platform to do it. Figure out with the software platforms you use in-house, what has AI capability that maybe I got to pay $20 extra a month to get, and get some quick wins and get it under your belt. And I think that's the best barrier. That's the best way to get in, is start slow, crawl, walk, then run.
Yeah, and I think the biggest barrier in industry is going to be for the brownfield companies out there that are looking to update equipment and machinery, and they've already got an established process, and maybe it's decades older or what have you. But is partnering with AMT, is that something you can help them with through that partnership? Is getting resources for that?
So if that was a question from a member, even a non-member, we would field that. And we have a whole inside of another division of AMT. I think everyone thinks of AMT as IMTS, but we have research, we have great overseas support team, global services. We also have a technology department. And their whole job is to keep the pulse on what technology and what innovations, whether it be mechanical and machinery or software and AI, are doing. So they can definitely help with best use cases. And also, one of the best parts about AMT is the community. I think people want to help people. So if you know anybody doing this, oh yeah, we know these three people, let's connect you. We'll help them meet, shake hands, and let them talk about it. So part of the idea of this association is community. So we can help connect other people to learn about that, as well as tell them things we've seen and the best practices we've seen in the industry. So 100% we can help in that regard.
I love that. And I apologize for waylaying the conversation.
No, this is the best kind. Instead of like checking boxes on a list of questions, it's better to have this organic conversation, I think. So
I know. And I really feel like my listeners could find a lot of value in that, more so than some of this other stuff.
Right.
Obviously. This is very exciting information. I think it's really cool that you guys do so much and you're partnering in so many ways in manufacturing. Those takeaways from 2024, very impactful, very insightful. How do you think that the tariffs will play? We don't know if we're doing that or not.
So what we would usually say is what's said on the campaign trail is often different what happens when people come into office. However, we do have a pretty specific stance on tariffs. AMT does. We just posted an article online a few weeks ago about it. But generally speaking, tariffs are meant as a point solution to make some change, not a broad blanket to put on everything. We're against broad tariffs against everything. We do believe it's a tool to use, but I think just putting a broad tariff on everything kind of doesn't, it's like a Band-Aid. It doesn't address the symptoms. What we need to do is help our manufacturing be more efficient and profitable, and get the people they need to do the right job so they can compete without these extra tariffs on it. So they're a tool, but we don't see them being the answer is 100% tariff on everything all the time. That's just a band-aid and not so solving the problem of American manufacturing being self-sustainable. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And I've read some other stuff that's very aligned with that thinking as well. I had to bring it up because it's been a very hot topic the last.
Our head of advocacy, Amber Thomas, just wrote a great article on amtonline.org. So if people are interested, go there. And a bunch of great articles came out recently, one on automation and one on some of the workforce things we talked about in this tariff one. So there is a wealth of great content on our webpage that you can read about, but the tariff article is really great by Amber.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that suggestion. For everyone listening in the audience today, you will be able to find the link to the show notes, to the website in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure to give that article and the other information at least once overview.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly. Or worst case, we can put my email address in there, and feel free to email me. I love email.
Education is empowerment.
Right.
I believe that. But speaking of future trends and maybe some of the ways that we will change how we work over the years, what are your predictions for humans in the world of manufacturing?
Well, we touched on it a little bit, but it's good to circle back on. I think there's a complementary role between automation and humans. I think that automation is great to take away some of those repetitive, hazardous, mundane tasks that'll free up humans to do things that are more complex or strategic, that'll help us overall enhance productivity. It's not going to replace, I mean, there's going to be some portion of replacement, but that's where upskilling and reskilling is going to help quite a bit, right? We have to adapt to these technological advancements. So there has to be this emphasis on upskilling and reskilling so that we can collaborate with the new technology we bring in, as well as we got to retain the employees we have because we're 500,000 short overall
already.
So it makes no sense to get rid of more people when we need more people. So there is, I believe, a bunch of new job options will come about because of all this technology, and it always happens. I can't remember the stat, but like 40% of the jobs that we have now were not jobs that were in place in, say, the 30s, right? It's this constant flywheel in new types of jobs coming. So upskilling, reskilling, it'd be critical. So hopefully there's a lot of money earmarked in those bills, as you mentioned, right? To aid in this, right?
I've seen job titles change over the last 10 years. And and just based on what we know about smart manufacturing and the way that we manufacture things today, as opposed to that long ago, I promise you, forecasting was not a thing.
Right.
So that's a great example of how sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I agree. I think that humans are definitely still needed in the future of work. I do have a question, though, on the younger generations. When you think about reskilling and retraining, for the younger generations that maybe they're like cell phone adjacent, do you feel like we're going to need as much training initiatives with them as we would maybe the current workforce generations?
Maybe not, and maybe they may be the good trainers, maybe not. But I still think there's because a lot of this technology is still newer to manufacturing, which is a more traditional legacy type industry, there's a lot of the UI and UX of the technology may not be what they're used to. A nice, clean, slick interface like with Apple is not something that exists on some HMI for a machine. It's very complex and hard to manage. So there's going to need some training because it's not as clean and maybe intuitive as they would like. So there'll still be that need for training, but I think also they'll be able to give some insights. Say, hey, listen, if we move this, get rid of this, combine this, it'd be much easier to use, and then a lot easier for maybe the more experienced workforce to.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting proposition that you make there. Like the younger generations working with the older generations on teaching them some of the technology. I like
because I think you hear, so there's always these studies and things the persona of the Gen Z or all the new people coming in, the younger generation, they want to be managers, they want to be whatever. So if we can empower them to teach some of these things that they natively know and just intuitively know because they grew up with it, it will help them feel empowered, but also be beneficial for everyone. So could be
And if
interesting. I'm not sure if that's the
we
solution.
have the patience to let them teach us.
Oh, well, could be a separate topic, but at least you're getting paid to learn in that scenario. So that lessens the blow a little bit.
That's true. That's true. That's a very good topic. I'm going to have to steal that maybe for a future episode of Workforce 4.0.
Interesting to see other people's takes and opinions on that and see where it goes.
Yeah. And then you think about the industry at large, at scale, and you think about kind of the trends that we're seeing for 2025. What do you think? What do you think when it comes to the top 3 trends in manufacturing technology in 2025? Where do you think we stand on that?
I mean, some of the ones I was thinking about, we talked a little bit about, so I'll talk about one we hadn't yet. And I think we saw a lot of it at IMTS is a more sustainable approach to manufacturing, right? I think that manufacturers are starting to want to supply machines that consume less electricity, use a lot less water, do all these things, right? So there's that, as well as the idea that the after services departments can help maybe elongate the use of the equipment so that it doesn't get recycled as fast, or repair it so that we don't have to always buy new. So I think there's a bigger focus on sustainability. And I think it's an easy lift on the aftermarket side because that's just in their nature. But also I think that with technology, we can consume less electricity, water, all these types of things and make it better for the earth. So that's an interesting one. I saw a lot of people saying our green machines and all these types of different slogans at IMTS. So I think that's interesting. Also, as we start to see more software and AI, I think there'll be a bit more data-driven decision making, or data informed. I know there's somewhat a debate when people say data-driven versus informed, but utilizing the data and analytics that we collect off the machine, we can maybe inform better our production processes and extend that to the supply chain, get to the right things to the right place at the right time. There's quite a bit of disruption from the pandemic. So there's, I know, a reshuffle of all the supply chain. So anytime we can get more visibility into that to help us, it's great. So data-driven decision-making, I think, is a trend to look out for. And then this continuous integration of advanced automation and robotics, right? And as a complement to the workers, not a replacement to the workers. We're still going to need this human oversight and collaboration. So I think these are the 3 things I see and I talk about quite a bit.
Love that. So data-generated decision-making, sustainability, and collaboration between robotics and people. Not necessarily in order. I don't think I got those quite in order.
No, they weren't in numerical order. We hadn't talked about sustainability, so I said that first, and then the other ones we had talked about. I think you could reshuffle them any order, and I think I would be happy with any order that we put those in.
I guess if some folks were interested in learning more about these 3 topics, sustainability or data-driven decision-making, or how to integrate people with robotics, not only AMT would be a great resource for that, obviously, but are there any partners out there that you would suggest collaborating with on these?
So, as I mentioned, big tech is coming into manufacturing, the Microsoft and Googles, and they have people that are focused just on the manufacturing industry. So they have a lot of great papers and seminars on things like that. So if you want to learn more about that at your own self-service pace, I think that's a good place for data-driven decision-making. Sustainability type things. So obviously sustainability, there's those 2017 or 26, I can't remember, focuses of the UN, and one of them is reducing carbon footprints and stuff. So the United Nations has lots of things to read about and learn about there. I don't know as much about other places to find that. And then integration of robotics. Every AMT member pretty much had a robot in their booth, so they're all becoming experts in that. And also just there are a lot of robotic companies out there. But I think that almost any light dive into social media or web, you'll find conferences about those types of things or white papers or things. I think it's other than AI, robotics is probably the most used term now out in the wild. So I think a lot of public resources there as well.
Awesome. And for those that are listening that maybe want to get in touch with you, Kevin, what is a good way for them to contact you?
I would say if you go to our website, amtonline.org, you can see all sorts of things, but it's a lot of site because we do a lot of things for the industry. So the other way is just email me, and that's K Bowers, so KBOWERS at amtonline.org. I suppose we can put those in the show notes as well, but
Yes.
feel free to email me, and I can be the facilitator to get everyone in touch with the right people at AMT or a member or whatever needs to be done.
Excellent. Yes. All of your information will be in the show notes as well as a link to your LinkedIn. Well, Kevin, I really appreciate your time today. I know this has been such a great conversation. I learned a lot today, so I appreciate it. And for those listening, we appreciate you listening. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review, and we will see you next time on Workforce 4.0.
Thank you.